Baseball Things Legal with Sunseri and Albert Nicaud. Underwritten by Nicaud and Sunseri Law Firm. Join us on the Oakland Art Jewelers Talk and Text line, 504-260-1870, or connect anytime, anywhere on the Odyssey app. Now, to our Jefferson Financial Federal Credit Union studios in the heart of New Orleans, here are attorneys Albert Nicaud and Doug Sunseri.
Hey, good morning, Doug Sunseri, Albert Nicaud, your weekend lawyers, all things legal. Give us a call, 260-1870, or text us at the Oakland Hard Talk and Text line at 870-870. And we're starting our 17th year. And we are on this whole weekend. And good morning, Albert.
Hey, Doug, what's up, man?
Nothing much. Getting ready for this. When they say the S word in South Louisiana, the city sort of goes, or the area sort of goes bananas. And so we're sort of going bananas here. And so we're getting ready for it. Looks like Tuesday is going to be the snow day. Huh?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're supposed to freeze tonight, and then weather's going to be okay tomorrow in terms of any snow, but then they're talking about maybe some snow on Tuesday and Wednesday. So I'm going to send a text to my group and, let them know that we'll be working tomorrow. It might just be cold, but, we'll be working tomorrow and then play it by ear for Tuesday and Wednesday, but probably not.
Yeah. I know some of the courts are closed on Monday and Tuesday. Just read the internet,
yeah.
read the paper.
The good news is it'll give us the opportunity to get really, really a lot done.
Yeah,
because the phone won't be in, the courts are closed. I think it's to me, that's when you can really get. A lot of people won't be working, and so your email box won't be full, and we can really just kind of sit down and get some stuff done that we need to do.
If they really did a TV series on lawyers, it would probably be pretty boring because they would show us at a desk writing briefs, writing letters, or send back emails, waiting in a hallway in court for 2.5 hours to be called. It wouldn't be very exciting. So I always sort of laugh when I see the TV shows because that's all you think. They don't understand that for every half an hour you're in court, you're probably writing for about 20 hours. So just a little
right. Well, yeah. I mean, that's it's like those sitcoms, right? You watch a sitcom, there's always something going on, but nobody's ever just sitting at home watching TV. That's what most people do, right?
Right. You watched the Detroit game last night?
I watched most of it. I had went to a shower for some friends' kids, actually friends on both sides, and the first time the parents met, we all met together to eat pizza across the river. But we went to that, but they put the TV on with the sound off, so I was checking in every once in a while. Jaden Daniels is the man. He's still getting it done. I am amazed by his poise. You got a 23-year-old kid who's second playoff game, right? Now he's he's not looking at the lights. The game's not too big for him. He just goes out there and plays football, and he's got a smile on his face. He doesn't get rattled. The other thing is with rookies, the game's a lot faster than it was in college. And he's adjusted. I mean, he's making the throws. It's fun to watch. He's something special. He really is.
I would say that the SEC prepared him because the SEC is closest you can get to the NFL. When Chicago Bears drafted Caleb Williams, I think we talked a little bit about it a year ago. I think they're going to regret this. They got the wrong number. They got the wrong number one.
And Caleb Williams is a great talent. But it remains to be seen whether he has the intangibles. And the intangibles you were talking about was poise. And there's three things that Drew Brees said you need to be successful. You got to process the game in your brain between the ears. You got to be accurate. You got to get the ball out. And he can do all three. Plus he can run. So a lot of the throws, especially in the fourth quarter, were just 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, get it out, first down. Now, the other thing that is helpful for him is that the linebackers do not know what to do with Jay Daniels. Because if you drop back, he's going to run. If you play up, then you have some holes in the, if you play closer to the line of scrimmage, then you have some holes in the zones. So he is probably, and he's just, sometimes he's almost indefensible if he's on. Now the Saints did actually a great job at defending him when they played him early in the year, but he's just I think the Bears are probably saying we picked the wrong guy, and I'm sure they did. I don't know if Caleb Williams will ever be successful. There's a good chance he may not. There's a good chance that he may. But I will. Jaden is just a generational talent, and we saw a glimpse of that at LSU. Actually, between Jaden's junior and senior year, he was really coached up. Because if you remember his junior year, he was holding the ball too long, running too much, and not really processing the game. And then he got, whether it was Mike Denbrock or Kelly or the staff, they really coached him up between that junior and senior year, where his accuracy and his ability to go to his check downs and go through his progressions really improved. And I mean, it just keeps getting better and better. And it'll be nice to see. And I think whoever they play, be it Los Angeles or Philadelphia, Washington can beat them. They're very beatable. And so that'll be.
I think this might be Philadelphia's year to make it to the Super Bowl.
It could be. I mean, I think they're beatable. Now, the Rams game, between being displaced a little bit with the fires and the Rams playing in cold weather, I think they're going to have a hard time today. I mean, I know the spread's 6.5. Philadelphia's favorite, and the Rams are a warm weather team, and I'm not sure that how they'll do in Philadelphia. I think they would fare a lot better if they were playing in Glendale or Los Angeles. But and now here's the interesting game. Buffalo is an underdog at home against Baltimore by 1.5, which I think is going to be a fantastic game. Very evenly matched, and I guess it's just a matter of whether Lamar Jackson is going to be the Lamar Jackson in the regular season or Lamar Jackson in the playoffs, where he might throw 3 or 4 picks and make a few mistakes. So there you go. But I guess also too, Aaron Glenn is now free to have unfettered conversations with the Saints and actually make a selection as to whether he wants to go to the Saints or the Jets. It looks like he's the favorite. They've interviewed, I think, six coaches this week. Probably the most formidable one that would maybe consideration aside from Aaron Glenn would be Joe Brady from LSU. And now that Mike McCarthy's free, maybe he's one. But I think Aaron Glenn's going to ultimately be the guy. Even though critics will say the Washington hung 45 points on them, but I think the 4 turnovers had a lot to do with that.
Yeah, Doug, I'm having difficulty hearing you on my end. I don't know if it's like that on the radio also, but I've sent you a couple of texts try to get your volume up if you could.
Okay. All right. But so we'll there you go. So there we hopefully. So we're just talking about what Aaron Glenn, who seems to be the favorite, and Cullen,
who did the sports segment before. Good job, Cullen. Did you get your raise yet?
Now you're doing sports.
I'm working on it.
You're working. Okay.
We'll throw our weight around at WWL and get you one. All right. Which you probably have to hold your breath some more. But if you Aaron Glenn, as Cullen said, and this is Cullen's, because you're 24, right, Cullen?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a 62-year-old.
Just turned 25.
25. He said, with Aaron Glenn's enthusiasm for the Saints is like the hot girl liking you back. Is that what you said?
Yeah, because so much of the offseason that we've heard in the last couple of weeks from national media has been that the New Orleans job would be the worst one in the league or the least wanted. So it's nice to hear that someone wants you back.
So I think he would be good. I think he would be a like we talked last week. He's been in every aspect of the organization: player, scout, assistant coach, coordinator. I think he knows the organization through and through. I'm not a believer in learning an organization from the top down. You got to learn from the bottom up. And my only concern about Joe Brady, he's 36. I don't think he has enough experience behind him to lead an organization. I think he's a great offensive coordinator. I think he would do, and I'd love to have him as an offensive coordinator, but there's a different skill set to lead an organization, and I still think he needs a little more exposure, needs to be a little more seasoned before doing that. And we'll see. But I think we're probably looking at Aaron Glenn. We might have an announcement sometime this week. I wouldn't be surprised if they can work things out. And we talked a little bit about the Pelicans. We haven't said anything about the Pelicans lately. And they've won it 3 in a row. And they seem to be playing like the team they could have been. They were too far in the hole this year to really do anything as far as playoffs. But I think we saw the potential. But Cullen, let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they ought to move Z?
I think you're slowly realizing that you might not need to build around him. I feel like you discovered something in Trey Murphy.
Yeah.
And that's why you might change what you think is the centerpiece.
Well, except the center, you'll have someone who's not the centerpiece who you're paying $40, $50 million a year. And to me, Albert, what do you think? You think they ought to move Z?
I think they ought to do it while he's healthy.
Yeah.
The question is, and again, I think it's more of a psychological thing with him. Does he have his head in the right place? Does he want to be here? Or does he want to be Mr. Hollywood and go out to LA or New York or Chicago, one of the big markets, which they all do, right? They all talk, they all text, they all chat with each other, and they want the big money, the big celebrity, the big whatever. And if that's the case, I'd rather have guys that really want to be here. They're going to play hard every week. The other problem with him is, he's kind of like an Anthony Davis. And I don't know how much it was, Anthony Davis was really hurt or really was just frustrated and decided, my hamstring's a little tight, so I'm going to sit a few games. It got so bad they used to call him street clothes, because that's all he would wear for most of the season. And I think with Zion, he's such a big, strong, explosive, heavy person in terms of his weight. And when you do all that on a regular basis, I think your joints and your your muscles and everything else, even though you're preparing and you're working hard, I just don't know if they can handle it. I don't know if you remember Boogie Cousins, but he was up to 300 pounds and playing well and just tore his Achilles.
Yeah,
he was done.
Yao Ming. I mean, he had a very short-lived career. I mean, it was too much stress on his foot. And
correct. Yeah. And then, same thing with Ingram. I think what you can't have, if you recall a few years back when they got Zion, my question to you about Willie Green was, we're going to see how good of a coach he really is, because Ingram and Zion both play in the same sandbox. They're all right there in the paint, right? That 10, 15-foot shot, kind of, they're crowding the area. So how are you going to get them on the court at the same time? And what his solution was for some of the game was to let Zion bring the ball down. But that's not, that's just not where he should be. And so, although he can, and it gives you a different look here and there, but and again, I'm still not sold on the Willie Green thing. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a good man, but the question is he a good X's and O's guy? They played a game the other day and they were up, 9 points with a minute and a half left, and turned it over a few times. And so I texted a little text group. We were watching the game, and I said, 2-1 that they can't even get the ball in, that they don't have an inbound play. I mean, how many times have you seen them, set one pick and try to get it to somebody and, have to call a timeout or, it's just, everybody should know where to be on the court, and they should go over and over and over, the situations, and especially at the end of the game, it's been his nemesis throughout, that they can't finish games. They can't win at the end. And, they probably lost 15 games one season, just not being able to finish. And, you're down by one, and everybody clear out, we're going to give it to Brandon Ingram, who they're going to double, to him to shoot a turnaround jump shot to win it. That happened probably 10 times one season, and he missed. And so you've got to be able to be creative. What have you been doing that got you there? What set, what plays, what situations. You call plays out of timeouts and turn the ball over. I mean, it's those little things that are so frustrating that it might be time to get somebody there that just can coach them up. Because I think they have the talent. I mean, I love Macy. I think he's got tremendous upside. Herb, Trey. Jose's playing lights out right now. I mean, he's a little bit of a defensive liability. But again, it's a situational thing, right? McCollum had 30, almost 50 points one night. The next night he comes back, he's 1 for 14. Well, there's 3 minutes left in the game. He's having a bad night. Let somebody else be the guy that's going to try to win it for you. You look at streaks, look what's happening. I don't know.
Well, I think Willie Green is coaching a coach killer. Zion. Total coach killer. And my opinion, before we go to break, let him play a few games, show he's healthy, and move him. Move him on.
Exactly.
The quicker we get him out, the better our franchise will be. He is a petulant man-child who will never, ever take the Pelicans to the playoffs. So that's just from a Sunday morning lawyer. It is worth about that opinion is worth about that much. All right, let's go to a break. Doug Sunseri, Albert Nicaud, your weekend lawyers, all things legal. We'll be right back after this brief timeout. You're not ashamed, as you're right. I like that one. That's a good. That was a good one. That was excellent. I didn't see that. Well, did you?
They had a special teams player, a guy named Chris Boyd, who was a defensive back, player returned it 63 yards before Floyd tackled him and forced a fumble, and then the Chiefs running back recovered the loose ball. But the Chiefs, the Texans DB who forced the fumble. Before the recovery, though, he sprinted off in celebration and threw his helmet off before he reached the sideline, causing him to get a 15-yard unforced.
Okay.
And that resulted in the Chiefs starting that drive on Houston's 13-yard line.
Yeah.
And when the special teams coordinator coach walked up to Floyd, the DB, shoved it. All of that pain is T-O-N-E. My balance is bad. And the D'Amico Ryans quoted after the game saying he didn't see the shove, but he called Floyd actively
silly. That's being very kind.
Yeah, that's being super kind.
We're in Mandeville on a northwest corner of Highway 190 and 22 near Chick-fil-A. Thank you. Good.
Yeah.
It's attorney Sunseri. Most of all.
Otherwise, nothing on the text line as of yet.
Yeah.
Except for that one guy.
Okay.
I was on the phone with him while Albert was talking about Willie. You could mention if you want to. We could go on the log here. But you could mention LSU baseball coming up or whatever.
Yeah.
And then trade deadline for the NBA. I want to say that's like February 7th or 6th or something like that. So it's a couple weeks away.
Let him play. Showcase him and move him. Get rid of him. Somebody will buy him.
Do you also try to move on from the team? Because the whole talk, like, if anything, we entered this offseason, or we entered this regular season thinking, okay, if the Pels trade anybody, it'll be Brandon Ingram. And now it seems like they might not trade BI, and they might just trade C.
Yeah.
Thanks to our sponsors and partners.
Like, is the roster at that point?
Yeah.
BI, Trey, Murray, BC. Or I said, so like her, maybe Alvarado, maybe Hawkins, and McCollum. Download the app. A lot there.
Yeah. No. I think when you're in a bad situation, you cut and run. You don't keep trying to make it work. That's just in business. You got a bad partner, you got to cut and run. I sort of had something I wanted to talk about. Yeah, just sort of a state law. Probably I have to cross the causeway, so it'd probably be, no, we got a North Shore office, and then we covered our plants and a few little things.
Is that all you've done?
A couple of pipes. My wife she does all the kind of maintenance around the house. I'm very untalented. I'm very yeah. I went to Lake Tahoe for Christmas. Yeah, that's how I got my ripped groin and abdominal muscle. Hit a patch of ice. Did a naughty comment each. Where'd Albert go?
Hey, we're back. Doug Sunseri, Albert Nicaud, you weekend lawyers, all things legal. We're getting ready for the Arctic Blast. And, they're moving the inauguration indoors. And did you know this, Colin? Are you a history student?
I keep hearing that it happened once before with Reagan. No? Yes?
Well, it happened. Reagan was last indoor inauguration in 85, but in 1841, William Henry Harrison was inaugurated.
He got sick, right?
He got sick.
He was so cold and wet. He got sick. He got pneumonia. He died 41 days later. And so there is a history. And John Tyler, was his vice president, who wasn't really expecting to be president after 41 days. Became president and became a very mediocre president. And so there is sort of a history regarding inaugurations being outside and, so maybe. So it's indoors. So it's the same Arctic blast. But I want to talk a little bit, Albert, about sort of a state law, but in a different context. When I'll say this, when people come in for an estate plan, and it sounds very, very cold and dispassionate, but you cannot really make the perfect estate plan unless you knew when that person was going to leave Earth and go to heaven and pass. Because there's different, I guess, short-term objectives and long-term objectives that you could accomplish, but sometimes you can't accomplish them all. And a lot of times there's two forms of estate planning where someone will say, do no planning, and when they pass, they leave a mess because nothing's planned. Then there's the other side where they want to move, have contingencies for everything. Contingencies for Medicaid planning, contingencies for, a lot of different other aspects. And they end up doing, trust. They end up moving, putting their house in trust and moving all these assets around, and then they just drop dead, and all that was for naught. So I'm sort of like in between. Let's do planning, but you can't plan for every contemplated risk that could possibly happen. Because if you do that, sometimes you make things more complicated, and that complication makes it more unmanageable as a whole. And so, a lot of times you have to talk that through in order to figure out, what is first of all, what is manageable and what is practical. More is not always better. And sometimes I've sat through a lot of different presentations. I've sat through presentations of other attorneys in the some in the financial industry telling you, you have to form an LLC to put your assets as a safe LLC, so that if you have a liability, your assets will be shielded. And my question would be, okay, well, what are you concerned may happen? You're retired, you have insurance, you have an umbrella policy, you're not really doing anything that's high liability, high risk. What are you shielding yourself from? But I guess my point in my little preamble here is, when you do estate planning, you can't plan for everything. And sometimes if you do, you end up making your estate more complicated than it needs.
No, I agree, Doug. I think, there are contingencies that you need to consider. And what people also need to figure out is that you can always come back and revise your will, right? They think that, we did our will, we're done. And then all of a sudden, 2, 3, 5 years later, situations change, assets they may have specified in the will are no longer there. They've had some sort of disagreement with one of the legatees they want to leave things to, then, maybe I don't want to leave it to that person, but they're not thinking about their will. And so, they can always come back, and it's usually a pretty inexpensive thing to come back and revise your will, because you've already got the bulk of it hammered out. And so if you want to change a few things, and back in the day, wills used to be long, they used to be hand typed, and now they're in they're in a word process. So people would do a codicil to the will, and hand type this codicil saying, hey, look, let's refer back to the old will, and we're gonna do XYZ now. Well, it's just as easy or easier to just revise the will, change that sentence in the will, and in the beginning say, I revoke all prior wills. And so now all of a sudden this is your latest iteration of a will without having to try to probate the will and the codicil and, make sure they coordinate with one another.
Yeah, because you're right as far as technology is concerned. Even this week we had a couple people who came in to do a will, and it was a simple will. And I mean, basically, we just as they were speaking, we were like a rallies. They gave us the order, and we came out with the hamburger or hamburger fries. In the sense that we were able to do right on the spot. It was a very simple will. But to your point, that it's not like you said before us, where you had to hand type the entire will, and it was sort of a different process. But it's as your life circumstances change, it's easier to address those life circumstances. A lot of times with codicil is something quick. Sometimes it's your kids go from college being adults, or you have grandchildren, and you have certain changes in your estate that you want to address. It's not as complicated as it once was. Let's do this. Let's go to break. We have Dante on the line. And he's got a very good question as to which better, wills or trust for estate planning, and that'll probably take us for the rest of the half hour. So let's go to a break. Dante, you hold on. All Things Legal. We'll be right back after this brief timeout. No, well, I mean, I wanted to break early so I could have a. Yeah. Right. Okay.
$2 a day. It's all online. No medical exams. You just answered a few health questions. Here we go. Visit DebTCos.com. That's DebTCos.com. As a will or a trust, which would be best? Inventory, increased overhead, even slow cash flow to small businesses all over America with affordable funding as soon as one business day. And we're ready to help with funding from $10,000 to $2 million. You've been in business for 1 year or more with a monthly income of at least $25,000.
Coverage per round. You can get the affordable funding you need with no collateral. Go to SwishFunding.com.
Right now at Verizon, you can get one line for less than you think. $50 per month when you bring your phone, which is less than you spend on Bella's dog walker and blank squad every week. Get one line. People are freaking out about the future of commanders with regards to the fact that Dan Daniels is going to pay $6.7 million for the next couple of years, and they're going to have $97 million in cap space.
Right now,
Oh my gosh!
you can get
Supporting cash they'll have.
He's going to be like.
We're in a store for a month.
I would sign him to an extension now.
After 1 year?
No, I'd wait. I would.
At the rate he's going, remember how we were talking before this season started? Brock Purdy was a decent playoff push. He'll be the first 65 million a year quarterback. If Jane Daniels makes it to the Super Bowl in his rookie season,
Mm-hmm.
are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like that, he might be the first 70 of a year quarterback. I mean, come on. Has it ever, I don't know, rookie QB's ever made the Super Bowl. So I put this in there. He tied Ben Roethlisberger's record.
Right, for the youngest guy winning a playoff.
Rookie in a single year, 2004.
Right.
car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now.
Yeah, I don't think a rookie ever made that Super Bowl.
I mean, a rookie quarterback, I don't know. Obviously, rookies in like, all the quarterbacks. We're coming back.
What you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available but can't stress any longer. And your tax today by visiting us online at pra.com or call 800-5481.
Hey, we're back.
Sunseri Albert Nicaud, weekend lawyer, all things legal.
That
That is Great Lloyd Price from Canada. Staggerly. Colin, I told you this before. They wouldn't play this song on the radio in 1959. They thought it was too violent because it was about a bar fight.
I thought it was like, yeah, bar fight.
Bar killing. So they thought it was too. That and Mac and I were very, very controversial back then. All right, let's go to phone lines. Let's go to Dante. Dante's got a question that we're probably asked every other week in our practice. Hey, Dante, what you have from us? From Mandeville, God's country, which is probably going to get 3 or 4 inches of snow. What you got?
Yes, sir. I'm sure you answered this before, but what's better, a trust or will for just an average family, maybe carrying some rental property?
Albert,
I'll let you
probably asked.
tackle that.
Listen, there used to be lots of reasons back when the federal estate tax exemption was, $600,000. You had a small business, you had a family that, made more than 600,000 or had more than 600,000 in assets, or a person who had more than 600,000. You're going to pay pretty hefty on your income.
And in the state, in the city of New Orleans, you have a death tax too.
Oh yeah, well, so did the state of Louisiana.
Yeah, and right.
Paid more than 600,000.
So all that's now it's 13.8 million per person. So 99.9% of the people in the country, don't meet that amount. Maybe if you have a thriving small business, that you own, that could qualify, but for the most part, and then they would have, life insurance trust where you would purchase life insurance, they'd put through a trust and do all these types of things, and to where, it would pay the estate taxes. But nowadays, there may be a handful of reasons why you might want to put things in a trust. And to me, it's primarily the result of who your heirs are, right? You've got young children, and you're a young family with a decent income and amount of money. Then something should happen to both of you. You go on a trip, you leave your kids with your parents or some friends for the week, and something happens to both of you. You don't want your 18-year-old child coming into a bunch of money, right? Because they're going to probably blow it. So what you could do is have a testamentary trust where you put it in your will or last will and testament, and set up a trustee and set up a trust for your kids to cover their expenses, their education, their if they need braces, you can specify what you want it to be. Or if you have a child that's an adult that is going to spend this money in 5 minutes, and be broke again, you may want to string it out and put that in a trust. If you have a child that's got an addiction problem, I've actually put in a will one time that the money's going to go into trust, and if you can establish that you have been clean for 5 years and you're regularly tested and can prove it to the trustee, then the money's yours. Incentivize them to
which
go. Yeah. So I mean, there are things you can do, but it's just a very limited circumstance as far as I'm concerned. We've had some people, we want to put everything we have in a trust because probate's so expensive. And the answer to that is probate is just not that expensive. In fact, we've seen some folks that talk people into these living trusts that they charge $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, and they're virtually useless. They just move their stuff to a trust for no reason. It's revocable, so it's not like it's going to protect you, give you any asset protection, because you can be forced to revoke the trust. And so there are a lot of things that And then you're moving everything into your trust, so everything becomes in your trust name, in the name of your trust.
They're virtually useless.
And it
They just move their stuff to a trust for no reason.
For you to
it's revocable.
Manage your affairs during your lifetime. So again, I think the vast majority of people can have a will drafted. A very important is the power of attorney, and because more and more people are living longer. And their cognitive skills decline to the point where they can't really handle their own affairs, and so you want to be able to give someone that authority to get your medical records, your tax returns, your financial records, your insurance information, all of those things that privacy laws protect pretty heavily. So
let me ask you a question.
Privacy laws.
Let me ask you a question on rental property.
So
now,
would it make sense to put the rental property in an LLC or a trust, or what is the difference between the two?
Well, it absolutely makes sense for that. And keep in mind that what people tend to forget, right? Well, he's the owner of the company, so he's responsible. He's liable. She's liable. Whatever the case may be. What people forget that when you form an LLC, that LLC becomes a separate person under the law.
Well,
it is
absolutely
treated as a separate entity from you, even though you're a sole owner of that LLC. Now, the income comes in and you're taxed at your income rate, and there's all kind of tax issues with it. But what it gives you is liability protection. So let's say you got a rental property, and you've got $1 million in liability coverage. Well, the the tenant's telling you, look, there's problems with this water heater. It won't light. I'm smelling gas.
The neighbor's telling, the tenant's.
All of a sudden, it lights it on fire and catches, 2 or 3 houses on fire before they can do anything. And now your exposure is, $2.5 million. Well, your $100,000, your $1 million in liability insurance is going to be paid, and that's all you're going to get. And then beyond that, you got $1.5 million excess exposure beyond the million in coverage. And so what this LLC does is it protects the rest of your assets, because it's only limited to the assets owned by the LLC. So, the value of your now burned down apartment that you were renting, whatever that lot value is, et cetera, would be the only asset that LLC might have. And so if somebody wants to go get a deficiency judgment against you for that, it protects all of the rest of your assets. I have rental property, and the rental property is in the name of the LLC. And just to give you an idea, and to put it in a trust,
the rest of your assets.
You might be able to name others in the trust, which you can do that. Obviously, you can name others in the trust upon your death. That I want this person to own it, and then when that person dies, I want the next person. So you can kind of rule from the grave for a little while, but otherwise it's a lot of money, expense, and headache.
I want this person to own it.
This is some general advice before we go to a break. If you have a professional attorney trying to sell you a one-size-fits-all on estate planning, be suspicious. Because each estate plan is very individualistic. And a lot of times, the one-size-fits-all for a revocable trust. Usually they serve a steak dinner with that also.
Exactly.
Just be cautious, because one size does not fit all. And each individual estate plan is as individual as a person. And what you want to do is you start from the basis of what do you want to accomplish, and what's the best way of accomplishing that, rather than saying it doesn't matter what you want to accomplish. It all can be accomplished by a revocable trust. If you hear that, then I would sort of like eat the steak, have the dessert, and then leave. So let's go to a break. Doug, Sunseri, Albert Nicaud, you can always all things legal. We'll be right back after this brief time out.
Who's that? Engelbert? What? Oh, because what they do is they do these steak dinners, and they try to get you to agree to do a revocable trust for like $8,000. They do that like for older people. We call them plate lickers, and then they go to.
So let's go. Download the BetQL app.
What is that? Oh yeah. You can read it. You don't think so? I think that's pretty funny. I'll read it. No, all right, I won't. Okay.
So what's interesting is what is interesting though with the Lions losing, whoever wins the Rams Eagles game today will host.
Yes. Right.
I kind of figured I'd get a machine, but I didn't. I actually got to talk to an actual person in the middle of the night. You need to change. Complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
And I'm looking to that conference championship weekend next game Sunday. Commanders games we have 2, and then the AFC against the
This is John from Silver Slipper Casino. I'm here to tell you about one.
Yes.
Are you going to any games?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Anywhere from
I would usually go start SEC. If I was in town, I would go to the Arlington. They're going to Arlington to play. That's in March. I would go to that, but I'm sort of. Yeah, and Dallas Baptist is good. Yes.
Why?
We'll start SEC play against Missouri on the 14th.
Of March.
So would you do that, or would you want to go against I don't know, is Missouri good this year?
They're not. I like to go for Alabama's, Vanderbilt's. Yeah, State. I love State. That's a great series.
On what you do well, like growing your business. Second month free when they sign up and use promo code second free by January 26th. So why keep spending more seriously?
Yeah, Arkansas is a great series too. I mean, in the SEC, every weekend except for Missouri, maybe is yeah. Every year it's a war, absolute war.
Texas Fees and others are brought to you by FEMA and
I mean, each 3-game series is just. Yeah. We were what? I think we were 4-12, 3-12. No, we were like 3-12. Mm-hmm. I think we were 3-12, and we sort of.
Covered every step of the way with wall-to-wall coverage on the
Yeah.
Sunseri.
Hey, we're back. Sunseri, Albert Nicaud, you legal lawyers, all things legal. Got about a minute until national news, local news. You give us a call. 504.
if you have a question outside of the show, you can call us at our office at 504-837-1304, 504-837-1304. We'll be on pretty much every Sunday until Labor Day.
Look, I wanted to thank you too, Doug. I heard you going by the office and wrapping all the pipes.
Oh yeah,
I appreciate you doing that today.
Actually, I was telling Colin, my wife's the one who wraps the pipes in this house, and she's doing all the. She's our maintenance person because of my deficiencies in those very useful skills for most. And she, despite my deficiencies, she still married me. So I'm appreciative.
There you go.
God bless. Albert, you're a guy. Now I said you're a multi-dimensional person. There's hardly anything you can't do. I mean, you're like a Renaissance guy. You cook, you do all kinds of things. So. But anyway.
Well, I will be over there with the pipes, Doug. Don't you worry. Our office is safe.
Thank you.
You're driving the bridge tomorrow or what?
Tomorrow, not Tuesday. Let's
I think Tuesday and Wednesday we're going to shut it down.
That's right.
In the pipes, Doug.
All right.
Don't you worry. Our office is safe.
Back in about 10 minutes, and I'll
You come in.
Stay tuned.
Driving the bridge tomorrow or what?
105.3 WWLFM and 81.
I'm Linda Taylor. A ceasefire between Israel and Hamas has begun. A Qatar government spokesman will take this way.
This is the last chance for peace in the region.
A James Elder with UNICEF, meanwhile, says this ceasefire deal must lead to a permanent peace.
We cannot return to the idea of children being bombed in their homes and being shot by boycotters. This needs to be sustained.
The Qatar government spokesman says Israel and Hamas must follow through on the ceasefire deal to have long-term stability and peace in the region.
The only way to get to the day after is to create a situation where people see hope in the future. For the people of Gaza, for the children of Gaza to look into the sky and see hope, nothing and destruction raining upon them.
Phase one of the deal is supposed to last 6 weeks. It begins with the release today of 3 hostages held by Hamas, the release of more than 90 Palestinian prisoners, and the reconditioning troops. Tomorrow is inauguration day as President-elect Donald Trump steps into his second term in office. Supporters came to Washington.
Yep.
The ceremony has been moved indoors.
Oh my God, dude, we gotta do a call.
In the nation's capital for the inauguration, the weather has put a bit chill on celebrations.
We came here with a little bit of excitement. Looks like that things have changed.
I'm disappointed, but I'm also
Good. What is it?
Americans optimistic about Donald Trump's second term.
We know that inflation and the economy were top issues in the election, and they are far and away the top things Americans want Donald Trump to prioritize. More expect his policies to make them financially better off than worse off. And this is especially the view among his own supporters, most of whom also expect his policies to bring down grocery prices.
Jennifer DePinto is CBS's Deputy Director of Elections and Surveys. On Truth Social, Donald Trump has posted Save TikTok.
He says he wants to offer potentially a 90-day reprieve.
CBS Tech contributor Gordon banned the Chinese-owned app from operating in the U.S., citing national security concerns. The incoming president will soon travel to California.
President-elect Donald Trump says he plans to visit the greater LA area probably at the end of next week after he's sworn into office. He told that to NBC News Saturday. He told him he wanted to visit earlier, but thought it would be better if I went as president, saying waiting until then is a, quote, a little bit more appropriate. It would likely be his first trip away from Washington as president. Trump also said he has not yet spoken with California Governor Gavin Newsom about the wildfires.
CBS is not Frankfurt. This is CBS News.
Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get the parts that are using fast from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. Did you know the IRS has programs specifically designed to help people struggling with tax debt? Powerful tax assistance programs that can save you thousands if you qualify. No one knows these programs better than the experts at Optima Tax Relief. America's most trusted tax return A-rated award-winning team of tax attorneys and licensed professionals have resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for your client. One call to Optima can start the process, helping to end your worries about wage garnishment, asset seizure, and other IRS action. Make sure you're getting the best options to solve your tax problems. Call the expert at Optima today for a free confidential consultation.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
WWL First News. I'm Chris Miller. We're bracing for cold weather, but we get a decent day today.
The forecast for Sunday will be beautiful as temperatures continue to climb in the upper 40s with sunshine. Use today to complete your preparations. Make sure you're wrapping up the pipes as a hard freeze sets in by early Monday. At that point, it will feel like our highs in the 30s heading into the majority of the middle of the week. We'll stay below that freezing mark as we approach the overnight time frame on the North Shore and South Shore with the possibility of snow and sleet. Even some high accumulations on the North Shore.
On the North Shore and South Shore with the possibility of
all the way
snow
through Thursday.
WWL TV meteorologist
on the North Shore through Thursday.
with pretty much all the state expected freezing weather, including possible snow, sleet, and ice. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry has declared a state of closure. And at local hardware stores, WWL TV's Rachel Manley tells us people are buying up pipe wrap and plant protection.
We called around to about 10 hardware stores in our area, including all over the North Shore and in the parishes, just to get a sense of what kind of stock was left in stores. Most of them said that they still have pipe and source, and a few said that they only had a few boxes left, and a few of them said that they already sold out completely.
The department says it is investigating a fatal crash this morning on I-10 headed towards the high-rise. One person died in the two-car collision. The cause is under investigation. Fire broke out last night. Big roller coaster closed Six Flags amusement park in New Orleans East. Flames are on the wooden coaster about 70 feet off the ground, which NOSD says made it impossible for firefighters to reach. Fire officials also said it posed no danger to the public. The process of being demolished.
This WWL Sports Update is brought to you by People's Health. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs have done it yet again.
Zeros off the clock, and the Chiefs have been out their 7th consecutive
We got a really nice caller up.
Oh, do we?
Yeah.
Is under investigation. Fire broke out last night.
Who's calling?
Mike from New Orleans. Telling Albert about I've realized that whenever a caller is giving me their question, the less I know about what they're telling me, the more happier you guys are to answer it and go, I want to do it.
Oh, good.
So he said his IRA owns a rental property. He's wondering if his personal assets are insulated from something.
Later today, though, the Eagles.
And if they're not, should he form an LLC?
Gotcha.
I say New Orleans because that's where the rental property is located. And Albert already knows what has his information along. We can get out of the open for sure.
They're going to look at the results of this game, and it's going to go a long way toward, defining their careers.
Eagles Rams later today, starting at 1:30, followed by Bills Rams. No Stadium, the LA Tigers drop another game in college play against
What's his name?
Mike.
Mike from New Orleans.
Now, your Garcia Roofing forecast on WWL.
We'll have time to. We can circle back to space after my.
Yeah.
I think we could open this. This is a good one. And I feel like it could be a blessing, guys.
Stuff. Come on, Cat. Get out of here.
We'll be watching for that. As we head into Wednesday and Thursday, it'll still be tough to get freezing precipitation into the overnight time frame, likely making road traffic. So, but those plans in place. For WWL Louisiana, I'm Gator Allen, Brooke Lister.
I'm Bristol. From WWL, big news, talk, sports, power, out to the Gulf South. It's all things legal with Doug Sunseri and Albert Nicaud. Underwritten by Nicaud and Sunseri Law Firm. Join us on the Open Heart Tour and Talk and Text line. 504 so 1870 or connect anytime, anywhere on the Odyssey app. Now, to our Jefferson Financial Federal Credit Union Studios in New Orleans, here are attorneys Albert Nicaud in the heart of New Orleans.
Hey, welcome back. Hour number 2. Doug Sunseri, Albert Nicaud, you Warriors, all things legal. Give us a call 260-1870 or text us at the Open Heart Talk and Text line at 260-1870. Before we go to Mike in New Orleans, real quick, 26 days to LSU baseball. So February 14th, I think we play Purdue from Purdue, Fort Wayne. Yes. So 26 days. We still have to forget about LSU basketball. They lost last night to Texas A&M, 68-57. So basketball is sort of just non-factor, at least in men's basketball. Let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to Mike in New Orleans. He's got a question about a rental property in an IRA, I believe. Hey, Mike, you're on All Things Legal. How can we help you?
Hey, I have a traditional IRA that owns 2 rental properties, and I'm just wondering what's my personal liability there. You mentioned an LLC to protect your personal assets, and I'm just wondering if I need to do that here.
I think you're going to still have that personal liability. Now, look, listen, in my conversation earlier, right? I don't know how often you've heard on the news anywhere that, the house burns down and, burns the whole neighborhood up. I mean, usually if you're not in a remote area, I think, the fire departments are pretty good to getting there and getting the fire out before it spreads everywhere. So that's kind of an extreme circumstance. So, one option would be to maybe have an umbrella policy, that would cover those properties as well. But I think the fact is the IRA is in your name and it's your retirement account. It's just that is the asset.
One option would be to maybe have an umbrella policy.
It's going to be in your personal name. So you will have, along with that personal liability. Now, keep in mind, I'm not trying to downplay the liability aspect of it because, if someone, someone dies as a result, right?
Along
now
with that personal liability.
And if there's liability on the part of the landlord, there's an issue, right? But way back when Doug and I were in school, I guess shortly after that, they changed the strict liability laws. So strict liability
way back when
you own the property, you were strictly liable for it, and if there was any defect in the property, you bought it. And everybody still thinks that's the case. So somebody tripped on my property, and I'm going to get sued. You might very well get sued, but they basically changed the law to say that you have to know or should know.
They changed the strict liability laws, so
and failed to correct it, right? In order for there to be liability with respect to property that you own. And so, it's then incumbent upon the plaintiff's attorney to prove somehow that you knew or should have known. Now, if you've got emails from the tenant saying, "Hey, I smell gas and I don't know what to do. Can you please come?" And you don't come for a month or you don't come at all to check it out or send someone to check it out. And now all of a sudden you knew.
Plaintiff's attorney
so that
prove somehow that you knew or should have known. Now, if you've got emails from
if there's some aspect of your property you're unaware of and the tenant doesn't give you any notice of, then the liability aspect of it is substantially lessened. But I would talk to broker who's handling that investment, and maybe even a tax advisor about whether or not that property. Because my guess is if that property is placed into an LLC, it would have to be moved out of that IRA because it's no longer owned by the individual. As if you were listening earlier, and it's a separate entity, right? The LLC becomes a totally separate entity with a separate identity. And so I don't think, and I don't know the answer to this. This is really a pretty obscure question, but I would talk to my broker and a CPA as to the tax consequences of moving it. If you're concerned about the liability aspects of it, but I feel pretty confident that if the property is in your name and it is owned by it's contained in the IRA, then you'll not be shielded from liability as you would with an LLC.
Yeah. And thank you. And there's a lot of rules to holding a real estate in an IRA. It must be strictly for investment purposes. Your family can't use it. It requires it to be bought in cash, and the IRA must pay the ownership expenses. And there's a lot of regs. There's some regs to follow, and so this is something you have to pay attention to all the time. So if you ever do that, it's sort of a financial, more on the financial side as opposed to legal. But it
is, and it's also you're looking at you're looking at an asset that falls outside of probate, right? So anything that, for the most part, that is beneficiary driven. So we can, for instance, your retirement accounts, your IRAs, life insurance, anything like that falls outside of probate. So when you make a beneficiary designation for any of those assets, it automatically transfers to your beneficiary without having to go to court. And so, that's another thing you really need to consider. And we always ask those questions because, people are like, oh, I want to make it fair. Well, if you're leaving, $400,000 in retirement, in a retirement account to one of your children, we're not aware of that, and all of a sudden we're trying to make it fair with what's left when one child is going to get $400,000 before we even start splitting up the remaining assets. So that asset will transfer to whoever that beneficiary is because it's within that IRA.
All right. Good explanation. Colin, we got a text. I'll let you get some reps and get the text.
Yeah, I always like doing this because it's like I'm asking the question. I apparently have a lot to ask you guys apparently, and this one is a doozy. I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm doing this apparently. I'm looking to purchase a home with cash. Are there any different legal papers or actions I need to do?
No, the only difference is you're not going to have a mortgage. You're not going to have a mortgage company that's going to make you go through certain aspects of, getting appraisals and surveys and doing all those things. That when you have a mortgage company involved, they are very, very, very interested in protecting
getting appraisals and surveys and doing all those things.
Jump through all these hoops.
That's secure.
And if you are purchasing it in cash, and this again is my advice to people who have the ability to purchase a piece of property in cash or have paid their property off and have no mortgage. Regarding the insurance side of it, like I said, I have recently done away with my insurance coverage for property, and so because my deductible got to be so high that it was just not worth it to me.
And this
So
again is
instead of
my
paying,
advice to people
$16,000 a year that they wanted me to pay, I'm paying about $3,100 a year for fire coverage, liability, everything else but wind and hail. And I've been very fortunate in the last few storms. My house was raised. We've not gotten any flood waters. We've not gotten we've lost a few shingles, but it's not been anything of any substance. And so I've owned my house for 30 years.
Regarding
So
the insurance,
it's just a question of how much risk you're willing to take. But be careful if you do go buy it in cash. Make sure I would maybe even get a qualified real estate agent, someone that you trust, that knows what they're doing, that's been in the business a while, to help you through the process. They will help you prepare a proper a purchase agreement, which sets forth timelines and requirements that the seller actually sell you the property, and talks about what the earnest money deposit's about. Gives you inspection periods, things of that nature. You definitely want to do that. You want to have the property inspected. Get a home inspector to go in there, and give it a thorough, look-see, and negotiate back and forth in the event that you have, some issues with the roof or electrical or some other aspect of the property. You can negotiate the price down. But there are a lot of things you want to consider when you purchase a home, beyond just here's the money, I'm taking it over. So make sure that you have all of those things in place, which a bank might require you to do if you're going to borrow the money.
Right. So again, emphasizing the fact that the bank's going to make sure you have title to the company. A lot of times in cash sales, you're not required to get a title, so therefore that could be theoretically overlooked since it's not a requirement. And so you want to make sure if you're going to buy a piece of property, you actually own it. And what about title insurance, Albert? What's your opinion on title insurance for a cash sale?
Well, I'm not a big fan. If you've got a piece of property that it looks like there's an issue with, a lot of heirs, different transactions, and look, whoever's going to they're going to do a title search for you, whoever the title attorney is, right? They want to make sure that the title is clear, by looking at the public records. So in Louisiana, we don't really have deeds. We have titles, and so we have cash sales that get recorded. We have judgments of possession in an estate that gets recorded. And so anybody wanting to determine the ownership of a piece of property, and the title to the property, will look at that property and look at what's in the public records, and they can rely on those records in terms of what the true aspect of the title of the property is. Now, did somebody 8 years ago, could they be some encroachment on the fence line or some survey that, those are the kind of things that you might have to worry about. But again, a good title examination, which you're paying for anyway, should catch those things and worry about, but again, so do you need a couple $1,000 for title insurance? Basically, it really is there to protect the mortgage company. They force you to do it, force you to get it, because they want to, belt and suspender protect their interest in the property. So they want to make sure that, you don't get bumped out somehow by some claim of ownership that, some predecessor in title might have exposed you to.
Okay.
Basically, it really is.
Let's go to a break. And Albert, after the break, I'm going to ask you to do your, because you do this about once a year, your explanation as to what's the difference between a title in Louisiana and maybe a deed in Mississippi when it comes to real estate. The subtle differences to it and how that's dealt with legally. So let's go to a break. Doug Sunseri, Albert Nicaud, your weekend lawyers, all things legal. We'll be right back after this brief time out.
Protect their
You know, I love listening to the Beach Boys the most in the winter.
In the
Yes, because I love playing Beach Boys in this kind of weather. It's just sort of like the contrast of it. Because like when you're hot,
sure
it's
yeah.
You know, I got my little 2-year-old granddaughter, and in my golf cart, we live in a golf cart neighborhood. Everybody got some, and so she wants to go ride, and I have speakers in the golf cart, and she wants that's all she wants to listen to is Beach Boys. We ride all over. I don't know. I played it one time, and she goes more. I know, and so then we ride. We usually ride about 45 minutes through the neighborhood, and so that's all we listen to is Beach Boys. And then there's a marina right by, about a mile away. So we go ride there. But I think it's because when my kids were kids, that's all I listened to was Beach Boys. And they're all Beach Boys and Frank Sinatra. They're all like big time. Beach Boys, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin fans. Oh yeah. I think when I was your age, I asked a girl on a date, and she was like 3 years younger. She's like 21, 22. And she says, "Where are we going?" I said, "We're going to go see Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, and
Don't let your situation get out of control.
Who's that? And I go, "At the Superdome." I says, "It gets better. We're going with my grandparents."
2, 10, 4.
She had like a look on her like, what in the hell am I doing here?
985-722-1040.
Well, she tolerates it. She likes country music. So I'm not a now the kids, like if I wanted the kids to quit bothering me, I'd crank it up, and they'd run when I was.
Awareness update is brought to you by Primary Care Plus. January is National Blood Donor Month. Someone in the United States needs blood every 3 seconds. And 1 in 7 people enter the hospital will need it. To donate blood in Louisiana, you must be at least 17 years old and weigh at least 110 pounds. Contact your blood donation center with your next appointment. The Health Awareness Update is brought to you by Primary Care Plus. With 12 locations in Louisiana, Primary Care Plus. Saturday morning, Best of Your Office and the Garden Show. Saturdays from 9 to 11 a.m. Brought to you by Bendy's Nursery. Trusted since 1926 for all your lawn and garden pest control needs. Visit Bendy'sNursery.com and tune in Saturdays from 9 to 11 a.m. David Dodd here. The people thought I want to share a secret that's changing people's lives. There's a company called National Deputy that can help you get out of this faster than you ever thought possible, like 12 to 48 months from now. With National Deputy, you can cut your minimum credit card payment by 50% and pay as little as $250 a month. Imagine, instead of paying multiple card interest payments every month, you can make one low monthly program payment, plus you can get approved in just a few minutes. They've helped hundreds of thousands of people just like you. Trust me when I tell you, National Debt Relief got your back and can help you get back on track.
To learn how you can reduce your credit card debt and become debt-free, call 800-234-7790.
All right, we're coming back.
800-234-7790.
I gotta get one of that.
800-234-7790.
Don't wait. Apply today.
Oh yes.
Sunseri and Albert Nicaud on WWL and Odyssey Station. Connect now on the Oakland Heart Jewelers talk and text line 504-260-1040. 1-870.
Hey, we're back. Sunseri, Albert Nicaud, you weekend lawyers, all things legal. That's Chicago. You know, they're in and out about once a year. And the last time they were in Chicago, they were in Biloxi. And if they're within about 50 miles, Michelle and I are going to go see them. And we ran into Detillier. So Detillier was there. He had worked that Friday afternoon, went to the Gulf Coast for Chicago, and to watch Chicago, and he was working that Saturday morning. So that's how much he liked Chicago.
Let me tell you my quick Chicago story. We went to Saints game in Chicago, and that we learned that Saturday night USC was playing Notre Dame. So we ended up driving to Notre Dame, and if you've ever been in that stadium, it's an overgrown Tad Gormley. It was built many years ago. The seat numbers are painted on the concrete seats, and you got about 10 inches between you and the seat in front of you, so everybody stands the whole time, because if everybody sits, their knees are in your back and your knees are in the back of the person in front of you. So there were about 6 of us, and it's halftime. The game was a blowout. I forget who was winning, but we go get something to drink, and then we go to come back in our seats. Well, 10 people have to get out of the aisle. I mean, before, the seat, for us to get to our seats in the middle of the section. So we're like, you know what? Let's just go. We don't, we've seen enough. Let's get back home, and we'll go to the game tomorrow. Well, we walk outside. Well, all of a sudden, the band Chicago sets up at halftime, and the Notre Dame band comes out, and all the horn section for the Notre Dame band is playing this incredible Chicago music, and we're standing outside the stadium listening to it.
I think that was 2010, 2011. Yeah, the manager of Chicago, Peter Schiavarelli, is a Notre Dame fan. And they're all from Chicago.
Oh, okay.
And they're all from Chicago, which is only 60 or 70 miles, I think, east of Chicago. And so they were all Notre Dame fans growing up. And as well as being Cub fans and Bear fans. So that was the connection. Right. So they played and they had the I actually saw the film or the YouTube. They had the horn sections of Notre Dame band backing up Chicago playing at halftime.
Oh yeah. Well, we actually were able to see the screen.
Yeah.
When we were outside of the stadium, so we got to kind of see it, but basically on TV, right?
That's right. So there you go. That's it. I wanted to. You do this about once a year, and I think it's very, very helpful because there's a lot of people from New Orleans may own a piece of property in Mississippi or maybe even Gulf Florida or Alabama, and we have a little subtle difference as far as ownership of real estate. We have titles, and other states such as Mississippi may have deeds. And they have some different legal implications, subtle and different legal implications, especially when it comes to successions and passing on that property. But if you could explain the difference between a deed for property,
well, so in Mississippi, there's an option to place in a deed. Oh man, I forget the terminology, but it's basically in the event of my death, this person becomes the owner of the property. And so then what happens is all the person that owns the property has to do is file a verified death certificate into the record at the courthouse, and so it determines who that ownership is, and you don't have to go through probate and do all these things to get a judgment of possession. I guess it makes it a little easier. And actually, banks have started doing that more, and Louisiana has kind of caught up with the rest of the world where that's concerned, where they are allowing that to occur, and those are valid transactions. So those accounts don't have to be run through probate either. But But you know, in Louisiana, if it's not in the public record, the transfer. Let's say the fellow that called up and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about buying a piece of property cash." Okay, and he just goes and buys it cash. They sign some documentation, get it notarized, and nothing happens from there. They don't get it filed into the mortgage and conveyance records, or in this case, in the conveyance records. Then what happens is anybody relying on the public records goes to look to see who that property belongs to. The public record is not going to be updated. And so the person that sold the property can turn around and sell it again. Now, between you and that person who sold it to you, you have a claim, etc. But you could get essentially bumped out of your property because if it's not in the public records, it's as if it didn't exist. So in Louisiana, you can definitely rely on the public record to determine ownership, and that's why the whole title insurance thing is a rare instance where somebody may in fact lose their title to property. And again, I'm not advocating one way or the other, but I'm just saying it's if it's an issue of risk taking, I don't know that that's anything you really want to do. That's just something. Hey, is it worth a couple $1,000? Sure, why not? And then the title policy will cover it for whatever length of time. Now, typically they're written for the length of the loan, but if you're buying the policy, the title policy, and there's no mortgage, then there is no length of loan. So you'd have to negotiate whatever the length of that title insurance would be.
They used to have. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Doug. Go ahead.
No, I was saying title insurance probably. This is more of a little history lesson. Before the 1990s, they used to have forced heirship, where you were required to give a portion of your property to your children unless they were disinherited for some very limited reasons. And at times, maybe a couple of generations down, it was determined that someone was maybe a forced heir, didn't receive, wasn't maybe noted in a transfer of property or a succession, or there was an heir that was never acknowledged in the succession, but were indeed an heir. And then they came back later and said, "Hey, I have part ownership in this property." Then you would have the title insurance would actually address those type situations. But now there's only forced heirship if you're under 23 years old, or if you're over 23 and you have you have an incapacity as defined by the courts, which is sort of a moving target. So I think before you had forced heirship, title insurance was probably a little more necessary, maybe, or covered, maybe a risk that was more common. But now it's a little, probably a little less prevalent now. But.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to mention with respect to that is something called acquisitive prescription. So essentially what prescription is in Louisiana is the statute of limitations, right? How long, and two types of prescription primarily. One is prescription where you essentially lose a right to bring an action. And the other one is where you acquire a right. It's called acquisitive prescription. And that deals more with the ownership to property. And more commonly known as squatter's rights, right? So if someone, there are two different time periods for that. One is a 10-year, for lack of a better term, good faith possession. So if you got a survey, and the survey may be wrong, but you got a survey that says you own this section of land, and that survey ends up not being correct, but you're in good faith. You don't know any better. Hey, I have a survey and my survey says this. After 10 years, that property that you believe you owned, that you've maintained, taken care of, and have essentially kind of announced to the world that, hey, this is my property, and exercise ownership over, becomes yours. And once you're going to have to file a claim, a quiet title claim to say, hey, look, this is my property. But otherwise, if you have something that, again, commonly known as bad faith possession, I know it's not mine. I've set up shop here. Or, for instance, my fence has been here for 30 years. And, whether I knew it or not, whether it's my property or not, after 30 years, and cutting the grass and maintaining the fence or maintaining the area in between it, your neighbor comes along and gets a survey done in year 31 and says, hey, look, this is my property. You got to move your fence. You can file a quiet title action and say, hey, look, I want to prove my possession for the last 30 years. And here's a survey that I had from this fence being here from my predecessor in title. You can tack your possession, right, to the previous owner and say, hey, this is my property. And after 30 years, it becomes your property. And you just have to file the action to establish it and go prove it in court. But, it's called acquisitive prescription. So those are the kind of things, too, that you might want to consider, title insurance for.
And I remember before we go to a break, acquisitive prescription, I remember you specifically learning that in 730 class on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in 1986 with Professor Lawson. And I remember you,
absolutely.
I remember
you he taught us so much.
I remember you were very intently listening on that acquisitive prescription explanation because you were still reciting it very well almost 40 years later. And I would have probably done a better job. We had that 730 class. And I probably would have retained more if I wasn't coming to class straight from Fred's from LSU. So if I probably got a couple hours of sleep, I would have probably retained that better. So thank you for taking the slack on that one.
Yeah, and a little brush up on that.
Believe it or not, I did get an A. I think I did get an A in one of his classes because we were both sort of whacked out thinkers in some way. So we were commonly aligned. So let's go to a break. Doug Sunseri, Albert Nicaud, your weekend lawyers, all things legal. We'll be right back after this brief time out. Temptations. That real estate class. That real estate class I had in law school, I used to come straight from Fred's at LSU to class. That's why I'm such a good, that's why I've never had a midlife crisis. I had my midlife crisis when all the way up until I was 27. And then I got it all out of my system. Got out of my system for a lifetime. Nearly killed me, but... California Psychics again.
Hi, this is Elaine with Go Tax Resolution. Do you owe money to the IRS? 170 million tax notices go out each year, and the time for code extensions is up. Take back control of your tax situation. Call Go Tax Resolution, your local one-stop answer to help you or your clients get back on track. Call 985-722-1040 or reach out to gotaxresolution.com. That's GEAUX taxresolution.com.
Hi, this is Sam with Go Tax Resolution. Is this the end of soccer tax and debt issues? Have you gotten notices from the IRS or state agencies? Put it into your sleeping tonight. Call Go Tax Resolution with your local tax resolution specialist. We work with accounting firms, individuals, and businesses alike. Go Tax Resolution is here to help. Call 985-722-1040. That's 985-722-1040. Or reach out to us at gotaxresolution.com. GEAUX taxresolution.com.
Take a short drive out to be like furniture this Saturday and Monday, 5 January 2025 sale. This Saturday and Monday at B-Watch Furniture in Livingston.
What'd you say? Luke, did you say something?
Oh, no.
Okay, we got a caller.
Oh, good. Who is it?
Could be a doozy. Hoping he's not coming up with a lie to get on the air. We have Jason from New Orleans. You're going to have to listen in. This is a doozy. He has a friend who lives in Lafayette. They're going through a divorce. The divorce is final. Said the petition still isn't done.
Yeah, and they interviewed like a neighbor, so I could tell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does he get reimbursed for that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. His portion of that. Yeah. Yeah. We'll talk to him.
Like he is calling from New Orleans. He said his buddy's getting divorced in Lafayette, but the divorce is kind of happening in Canada because that's where the property is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
Call for your free info kit. 800-329-2121. 800-329-2121. 800-329-2121. Local news can come at you fast. Want the latest on what's happening in your backyard? Download the free Odyssey app. Follow your local news station, and you'll get alerts on the top stories making headlines in your city. You can stay in the know, no matter what you're up to. Be among the first to find out when news breaks. Plus, keep tabs on weather and traffic, so you're never caught off guard. To get started, download the Odyssey app. That's AUDACY, and follow your local news station.
All things legal on WWL. Consult with Nico and Sunseri now on the Open Jeweler Stock and Text line. 4-260-1870. And don't forget to rewind on the Odyssey app.
Hey, we're back. Sunseri, Albert Nicaud, you weekend lawyers, all things legal. Real quick, we got a text that said the successor right in a deed is a joint tenancy with a right of survivorship. So that's
there you go. That's what it is.
Thank you. And you can bill Albert for that information. I'll give you.
Right.
So. All right. Let's go to phone lines. Who we got? Colin? Jason from Lafayette, right? New Orleans. Okay, Jason, what do you have first, Jason?
Hi. Yes. I had a friend. Well, he was. I told your person it was in Kenner, Jefferson Parish.
Mm-hmm.
So he's been divorced. The divorce just went through. I guess it was middle of last year.
Mm-hmm.
He's in his 70s, and so anyway, they never did the property partition yet,
mm-hmm.
and he's still paying on the property.
Mm-hmm.
First, I have a couple of questions. How does that work? Does he get reimbursed even though the divorce is now final?
Yes.
Does he get reimbursed on all these payments that he's making? Like even if he's not married to the lady,
Absolutely.
They're both in their 70s.
Yes.
He gets reimbursed for the payments he makes today, tomorrow.
Well, that's part of cooked into the final community property settlement. What you do is, in a community property settlement, what you do is a detailed descriptive. You do sworn to detailed descriptive list. Basically, you have a couple aspects of it. You have what are the assets in the community property or the estate. What are the liabilities and what are the reimbursements? And basically, like for the assets, they'll say who's in possession of the asset. who's not in possession. And then in this document it says, what are the liabilities? Did one of the parties satisfy the liabilities and the other one owes them on their half of the liabilities? And there's reimbursements. And the reimbursements have to do with the servicing of community debt after the divorce. And you have that. Those line items, the person paying it gets usually have reimbursement for their for paying the other party's portion of the obligation. So when you have this detailed descriptive list, you sort of do a mathematical computation based on who's in possession of the assets, based on who paid liabilities, who's assumed the liabilities of the estate, and reimbursements, and you basically sort of find out what the equalization is. And so one of the computations utilized in what's the equalization that make everything 50-50 is the reimbursements. So if you paid reimbursements, you sort of have credit on your side of the ledger. So it's basically an accounting function that is done to figure out who has the assets, who paid the liabilities, what reimbursements entitled to, and what is that number. Okay. And based on that number, does one of the parties owe an equalization payment to the other party? Now I'm making it very simplified because a lot of times you'll have someone who wants to stay in the house. If the person stays in the house as part of the equalization calculation, that person will have to pay the other party half of the asset, half of the equity in the house. Now a lot of times if there's not enough cash to pay an equalization payment, then you're going to have to start selling off assets. Maybe you have to sell off the house. Maybe you have to liquidate assets. So yes, in the big scheme of things, you will have any payments that he makes after the divorce for community obligation, he will get reimbursed his half, or the half that he paid on behalf of his ex. So the community property settlements are. They usually at some point during the process, the parties cut a deal because a lot of times, if you go all the way to the end, the cost of the process eats into so much of the community property that even if you prevail, there's less. The pie gets smaller, and so therefore you might win a battle and lose the war. So most of these settle. Now sometimes they don't if you have some highly contested issues. But basically, a mathematical computation is done to figure out what assets are in the possession of each party, what liabilities does each party take care of, what reimbursements are they entitled to, and then they figure out what the equalization payment is, and that's how very in a simplistic fashion it is resolved. But often community property settlements, they take time, and if both parties are not motivated to settle, then it can take years. If both parties are wise and realize that the only thing we'll be doing is by contesting this, we're just prolonging the process, and the cost of the process is eating into ultimately recovery, then they're more motivated. So yes, and there's various stages to it. You have to submit a detailed descriptive list, and then the parties get to contest the list, and then they have a trial on the contesting of the list. And once the list is, or the classification of property, whether it's separate or community, and then after you have a trial for that, you have another trial on the actual partition. So it's a quite involved process. Most people don't want to go through it. Most people want to cut a deal before they get through the process. Sometimes if they're not in that frame of mind settling, they don't. And in those cases, probably the winners are the lawyers, and the losers are the ex-husband and wife. So great question. Let's go to a break. Sunseri, Albert Nicaud, your weekend lawyers, all things legal. We'll be right back after this break time out.
I wanted to yank it out because I wanted to make sure we had enough time here.
Yeah.
We still have a text
I'm gonna give Albert the floor to close it out. Let's see. Let's see how much time.
It was someone asking, like, they happen to stay with a house
Right, that's
more air than a bank account. The executor wants to sell their house, or sell the house, close the bank account, and distribute the cash. But some of us want to keep the house and buy it from others.
How much time we gonna have? I don't know if we could tackle that. Yeah. Let's not, because we're gonna give a half answer. Yeah. Just talk. Just let him, if he has any parting comments. Yeah, that's a. Next week. We'll be set.
Know what they are, and
I think Ohio State's going to run away with it.
You know, if anything, I feel like the biggest news would be if by the next time we have a show, it's the same time. I'd be surprised.
I think they will.
You think they will?
Yes.
I think by next Sunday they'll have a new.
I think they'll do the announcement, the formal press conference a week from Monday. Yes, I think they'll have it.
So, one thing, I haven't mentioned it because Charlie told me this, and he made it seem like it was something Deuce said off the air. Charlie told me that Deuce believes, and I trust Deuce, that Deuce believes he wants to have their head coach announce sports.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
And I think that's, I mean, you've already.
Well, because of the senior. Plus, you want the Senior Bowl. You want your coaches at the Senior Bowl starting to scout.
And if it seems like the staff as a whole is in here, that you not really want to give time to the coaching or everybody else.
Well, you do most of your interviews for assistant coaches at the Senior Bowl in Mobile because they all be in the same place.
Leads, levies, audits, qualify by dialing 800-784.
Yeah, okay. Hey, we're back. Sunseri and Albert Nicaud. We can order. It's all things legal. We'll be back next Sunday at 8 o'clock. Albert, any parting shots? Got about 2 minutes.
I do have some parting shots. Every year, tomorrow, of course, is a number of things. It's the inauguration. It's in college national championship football, but it's also a celebration of Martin Luther King Jr. If you ever get a chance, I would recommend you do this. Pull it up on the website, on the internet. Read his "I Have a Dream" speech. We've all heard snippets from it, and they play little bits of it here and there. I have a dream, but I was in Washington and I've got a copy of it and read the whole thing one time, and it was truly divinely inspired. What a brave political hero he was, and I think his dream has gotten a little skewed these days. But if you go back and read it, it's truly amazing. And for the times, it's worthy of the celebration. But for everyone, I think it's important to go read that speech and hear what he has to say. It just rings true in every aspect of it.
There you go. So tomorrow will be inauguration, MLK Day, and Tuesday we'll have a snow day. So got it. Any predictions on
Tuesday and Wednesday? I hear.
Right.
Tuesday and
Wednesday is supposed to be worse than Tuesday.
Any predictions on Notre Dame, Ohio State?
I think it's going to be Ohio State in a close one.
You think? I think Ohio State's going to win. But I'm wondering, at NAS,
be Ohio State.
I mean, you got. I guess is it like the edict, the Archbishop that you have to pray for Notre Dame? Is that or they past that? You know.
So no touchdown Jesus in the stadium.
No touchdown Jesus. But being as Catholic as New Orleans, we have a duty as good Catholics to pull for Notre Dame. So,
well, I mean,
and if we don't, do we sin?
So I'm going to be cheering for Notre Dame anyway.
Is it a sin for a Catholic not to pull for Notre Dame? And that's the question. So I'm pulling for Notre Dame. So there you go. But I think Ohio State's going to win.
All right,
y'all have a great week. Stay safe in the snow. Watch when you walk out your front porch. It's icy. And you don't need to enrich Morrisport anymore. Be careful driving in this ice. So let's go. So we'll see you next week. And all things legal. Be good. Be blessed. And stay safe.
All right. Good job, Colin. Yeah. Your reps were good. Your reps. I think they'll be announced by next week. I think they'll be announced by Friday. Yes. That's how. I think it's Glenn. That's what I think. I think the report is they have come to an agreement.
Right.